Hello, economists. Here's a quick rundown of a little add-on topic for Unit 3, something that is referenced on the AP test actually quite often, though you're not always needing to answer a question based on it. So anyhow, occasionally you'll find either in an FRQ or a multiple choice question reference to an increasing or decreasing cost industry, as opposed to a constant cost industry. A constant cost industry is what we typically see when we're solving a long run to long run perfect competition question. But sometimes you'll have the question sorted out a little bit differently. So if you see a reference to an increasing cost industry, I'll show you what that graph looks like and walk you through it. A decreasing cost industry is pretty much exactly the same thing, but working in the opposite direction. I'm not going to present a graph on that one. So let's just imagine you're a wheat farmer and you're making short run economic profits. You expect new firms to join the market, but you know there's only so much land suitable for growing wheat. And or maybe there's only so much fertilizer that's out there. And or perhaps you need to lease your farm equipment from a company that owns all the very expensive farm equipment to plant and harvest all of the wheat. Anyhow, for any of those reasons, you might experience increasing input costs as more new firms enter the market. So an increasing cost industry is an industry in which, as the market output grows and as competition increases within that industry, when new firms enter, the per unit cost or the variable costs for all firms increase. What that works out to looking like is something like this. So let's imagine you have this standard example of a perfectly competitive industry in long-run equilibrium. So you might say demand increases, price moves up to $20, the marginal revenue curve for each firm moves up from $15 to $20 right here. Now the firm is making 10 units instead of 8 units, and they are making an area of positive economic profits indicated by the gold box right there. Hooray, Yahtzee! That's good for these firms. Of course, we know that we can expect, because of low barriers to entry, new firms to eventually come online and enter that market. Now, as these new firms come online in an increasing cost industry, what we will end up seeing is a different magnitude of shift from the supply curve. We're used to seeing the supply curve shift out in about the same magnitude as the demand curve shifts out, bringing the market price all the way back down to 15. But in an increasing cost industry situation, the input costs for the existing firms escalate to match that price as it's coming down. So the price is not going to come all the way back down to 15, but instead the new price is going to come back down to, say, in this case, $18. Notice that supply has shifted out, but it hasn't shifted out as much as demand shifted out initially. The price went up from 15 to 20, and as the price came back down towards 15, the firm's variable costs, and thus their average total costs, rose to meet that price as it was coming back down. And the way that this example works out, it looks like it's at 18, though maybe I should have put 17 there. Anyhow, that's what an increasing cost industry is. And then what you might be asked about in addition to that is the long run industry supply curve. So that salmon colored line right there is the long run industry supply curve, and it's upward sloping. An upward sloping long run industry supply curve is merely the connection between the previous equilibrium point and the new long run equilibrium point after the demand and supply shift. If that has an upward slope, that means that this is a constant cost industry. Now, if there was a decreasing cost industry, perhaps the decreasing cost industry might be in this same example if a number of wheat producing farms come online and the input costs go down. So let's say the fertilizer business, which is an input for growing wheat, might experience increasing returns to scale or economies of scale. So fertilizer is cheaper now that more firms want it. I don't know exactly what might make that the case in the fertilizer market, but there are some other examples of decreasing cost industries that you can go ahead and look up if you wish. And if it was a decreasing cost industry, what we would see is the supply curve shift out further than the demand curve instead of not as far. And then the per unit cost for the firm, indicated then by the marginal cost, would fall instead of rise, and the market price would end up below 15. and we'd get a downward sloping line instead of an upward sloping line here for the long run industry supply curve. And again, the constant cost industry is the standard model that you learned first and that we've been working with the most. And in the standard model, a constant cost industry has a flat and level long run industry supply curve. Thanks very much. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.